Inhumane, immoral, soulless, the vitriol aimed at the federal government over its sanctions on Australians returning from India is ferocious.
As the coronavirus pandemic continues to take lives around the world and thousands remain stranded abroad, Australia seemed, to be abandoning Australians. The most recent example was in COVID-ravaged India, where an estimated 9,000 Australians are currently stranded. Now, not only did Australia ban any flights coming from India for a month, but it also announced it would jail anyone who attempted to return from India. Imagine that! These guys actually made it punishable crime to go back home. We're talking 5 years in jail or a fine of 66,000 Australian dollars, which is around 50,000 US dollars.
We're stranded, we're stuck here. Now this virus is hit. You never know who it's going to kill. The amounts of bodies being burnt currently around the city is it makes you very tense and anxious. It's hard not to get anxious.
Thankfully, the Australian government has announced that it will be resuming flights back to Australia as of next week. Even though Australian PM Scott Morrison stood firmly by his decision to impose a travel ban from India.
The order that we have put in place has been highly effective. It's doing the job that we needed it to do. And that was to ensure that we could do everything we can to prevent a third wave of COVID-19 here in Australia.
Now, from the Australian government's perspective, this hardline stance is what's keeping the country safe. Australia has enjoyed near zero infection rates and recorded just 910 deaths, far fewer than most other nations. But, and it's a big but, safety has arguably come at the expense of the rights, safety and well-being of thousands of its citizens abroad. Australia was one of the first nations to close its border in March 2020. But early on, issues in the quarantine program emerged. The number of returning citizens threatened to overwhelm the system due to a limited amount of hotel rooms available. Now, the government's solution did not include expanding the system. Instead, they introduced travel caps, drastically reducing flights coming back home. Currently, about 7,000 people are allowed in each week, but the level can be reduced at any time. So effectively, what is happening is that a queue builds up of thousands trying to get home, having to wait weeks or even months for their turn. This, of course, has also made airfares skyrocket out of reach for many. Also noteworthy is the fact that Australian citizens themselves actually have to pay for a compulsory 2-week quarantine in a hotel. Not to mention that even repatriation flights are not free. That's a mad thing, you know. So going back home has literally become like getting bumped for a ride home, then not being allowed home, getting stuck in a hotel alone, and getting your money sucked again. Brother, it was like easier for Jon Snow to get back from beyond the wall, fam. Returning to Australia is not a matter of first come, first served, or a matter of waiting patiently in a virtual queue. That's if you're a celebrity. Yep, that's right. Here's a photo of all the renowned figures who were granted exemptions to enter Australia during the past year. Maybe Australians should dress up as Matt Damon to go home. I guess Hollywood stars have that born supremacy, and Australia doesn't like The Departed. Hey, you see what I did with the wordplay there? Matt, the movies, the Australia. Anyway, fam, shout out to all the prolific mandem in Melbourne, yeah? Look, in reality, this isn't fun. Not if you're an Australian stranded abroad or if you're at home with relatives separated from your loved ones. Ironically, our nations, our passports and citizenships are supposed to protect us and forever allow us free passage to at least our home country. But apparently, this is not the case in the land down under. On the Australian passport, Her Majesty states it clearly.
To allow the bearer, an Australian citizen, to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford him or every assistance and protection which he or she may stand in need.
Well, I guess not, babe.